So hi, I am Claudia Darcy, and I am the Director of Outreach and Advocacy at the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you start off and tell us what exactly do you do with the outreach at the coalition? What does that actually mean to the community out there?
I am basically the promoter. Anything that we are doing, I am the one who's making sure that it's trying to get out and reach as many people as possible. So, I manage the website, the social media, all the internet real estate, the online advertising, the offline advertising, anything along those lines in that outreach aspect of my job.
Well, okay, why don't you give us a little background of what brought you to the coalition? And I know it's a long,
Divine intervention.
What brought you to it? What made you want to work with foster care and adoption and the coalition itself? How did that lead you?
Well, like many people, my entrance into adoption land began a long time ago because I am a birth mother. I relinquished my firstborn son to domestic traditional closed adoption back in 1987 when I was 19. And so I like to say I have been a member of Adoption Land for almost 32 years now. And then about, oh gosh, 18 years ago now, I went online and, well, Google entered my life. And so there it became that was the first step. And the first thing I Googled was adoption. And so here I am many years later. But yeah, so basically I have spent a lot of time involved in the online adoption community, almost 2 decades now. And in that process, because I just kind of grew as the internet grew, my skills grew, and the places when adoption moved, I moved with it, from message boards to forums to blogging to creating websites. And because of that, I ended up becoming an internet marketer.
Okay.
So I ended up being trained professionally to do this and to be I'm actually trained in search engine optimization and I understood website development a lot better. And so I did that for a number of years professionally. And then I realized that actually marketing by itself was rotting my soul because I did not want to tell people where to buy shoes.
Okay.
Or mini storage when really, helping people and, on these major life altering issues that adoption is involved was much more important. So when I realized my soul was rotting, I left and I thought to myself, I'm never going to work in an office again. And I went home and I started doing freelance work and I did a ton of pro bono work for the adoption community and, sat there and did that. And it was awesome. Except, of course, the reason why I shouldn't be in business for myself is because I don't go after the money very well. So it was awesome, but it was also difficult. And then oddly enough, basically I had a relationship with the coalition because I was doing freelance work for them and had spoken at the conference before. So I knew Richard, and when they were hiring it was before we had all the contracts, so it would have been the single employee besides Richard. He said, oh, you know a lot of people, we're hiring, here, share this with people. And I looked at the job description and I went, that is everything that I do, and that is everything that I love to do. And I immediately said, no, I don't want to share this with people, you should hire me. And a week later I was here and I haven't left yet. So
All right. So why don't you tell everyone out there a little bit about what exactly the coalition does for people who don't know? What is it?
I like to say the coalition, we occupy a very unique space in adoption land in general, but specifically in New York, where being the fact that we are not a child placing agency, so we are not on the front end of making them happen. On the front end of adoption, it's a matter of giving people information, giving people the laws, giving people the research, making sure that they know who to contact, but we're not on the front end. And then because we're not an agency in that level, but we're also not at the state, we're not the state agency, we're not a government agency, we're not oversight. So we occupy this really as I said, it's a very unique kind of neutral middle ground where, we are the ones that is, we're the ones that you can go to.
Right.
We're the ones who are here for the families. We're the ones who are here for everything that
Right.
you can't get from someplace else. We don't have um, we don't have a need to sell someone on something or make you fit into this box, or it's just whatever it is that you need. We try to be here to get families what they need. And I always say knowledge is power.
Right.
So the more people know and the more you can reach people, and no matter what, I think all of us can agree that often this journey, no matter what part of the journey we take, it can be very isolating, whether you feel like you're an adoptive parent, or you're a foster parent, or you're an adoptee, or you're a person who lived in foster care, or as a birth parent. It's very isolating. So the most important thing I think that we can do is just be able to connect with each other and be there for each other, because it does take a village.
Right. What kind of things, if you have any examples, since you're the main hub, what kind of things do you see is the most, I guess, prominent issues that people call you for, or you deal with, or even advocate for?
Well, I take all the phone calls from pretty much any adoptee or descendant of adoptee or birth parent who's searching or wanting to get access to their original birth certificates, or need documentation for their, for legal reasons. Those calls are all mine. Those also happen to be, I want to say, if they're not number one, they're the number two reason that people often call the coalition,
Right.
which is a big issue. So that's the number one. I mean, and that's something that original birth certificate access is something that I have personally worked on since 2006, and go New York.
Yeah,
uh,
no, actually that's I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of my next
all
questions.
right.
Um, So I was talking to someone, an adoptee the other day, and I asked the question, because most people are on Facebook and they scroll,
Yep.
and everybody just sees,
Blah
please
blah blah
vote
blah
for
blah.
this, blah, blah, vote for this. What is, what are we missing as a community of why is it so important that the adoptees have an original birth certificate? Now, I know the answer, but what is everybody, when they're scrolling by, why do they need to stop? What's the thing that they're missing?
Well, there's so many pieces on that one.
I know, it's a loaded question. It's a definite loaded question. Sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I think the thing with when they're scrolling and they see something about OBCs, especially right now, and especially if you're in a state where there is legislation that is pending. Texas has a ball in the court. I think it's still there, still alive. New York is pushing along. Massachusetts has a bill this year. Connecticut, they were hot and heavy. I'm not exactly sure where they are, but anyway, if you're in a state that has pending legislation, pay attention. Sign up for the email list, and when they say make your phone calls, please make your phone calls. I mean, we had New York Adoptee Rights Coalition. The New York bill was heard for the first time ever today
Okay.
in the Senate Health Department. I mean, it was never heard by the Senate Health Committee ever, and they passed it, and they've recommended it to go to the floor for a vote, which is absolutely positively amazing. And there was call outs from NIARC saying, email the senators, email everybody who's on the health committee and say, this is important to me, I need you to pass this. And then there was a phone call list of call them and say, this is important to me. And we know, because we asked them, have you been getting a lot of phone calls? Yes. They're saying, yes, we're getting flooded on this issue. And that is so important, because it might be important to us, but unless we convey that to our legislators, they don't know, they don't care, and they're not going to listen. They really actually do listen if we tell them what they want, what we need. And
Right.
so it really is our job as constituents and as members of Adoption Land to make sure that if we care about something, to make the phone call, take 5 minutes, send the email. And most of the activist groups, they're giving you copy and paste anyway. It's called, here's the list of emails, copy, paste. Here's the letter, copy, paste, sign your name, hit send. There you go. You're an amazing activist, and it took you all of 94 seconds.
Right.
There's no excuse that people can't do that. So that's my number one thing. I mean, at least do that. The other thing that people really should do is, oh my God, pay a little bit more attention.
Right.
I mean, we were laughing already because we're saying, yay, it passed the Senate Health Committee. And then already does this mean I can get my OBC? No, you can't get it yet. Like, at least, I know it's complicated and not everybody has the time, but at least, pay a little bit of attention so you don't ask 1,000 times.
Why is it so important? Why is it so important that adoptees have their OBC?
Well, number one, the core issue on this, no matter what everybody's, whatever people might think and what people's personal stories are, the core issues on this, it is a matter of civil rights.
Right.
End of story. Adoptees are the only classification of human beings in this country who are denied access to their original birth certificates.
Mm-hmm.
That is discrimination. When a class of people are treated differently than another class of persons just based on the circumstances of their birth of which they had no control, which is an adoptee, that's discrimination. So we have state-sanctioned discrimination on a national level, and that is wrong. What people want to do with their original birth certificates when they get it, it's up to them. It doesn't matter. It's not for the state to legislate. It is just simply their right. And it doesn't matter. The other thing too is, people say, oh, well, there's open adoption. Well, I got a copy of my son's original birth certificate before I relinquished him. I didn't, but I mean, like, I could say that if I had actually done it. So lots of birth parents can. And sometimes they pass it on to the adoptive parents. So they'll say like, oh, I have my son's in a lockbox. That's wonderful. That's great that you have it. But that does not restore your child's right to access it themselves. If I lose my original birth certificate, I send a letter. And I send it, here's my driver's license, here's my check, give me my birth certificate back. Why am I different than, say, my son,
Right.
who for some reason doesn't get it? My other 3 kids can, but he can't? That's ridiculous.
Right.
Okay. So it really is civil rights first and foremost. And then after that, I say it's the spoke of the wheel. Civil rights is the main thing. And then, because adoption affects every aspect of pretty much everybody's lives in so many multiple ways, emotional, I mean, there's just so many different ways. Original birth certificates affect that too. It goes to identity development. It goes down to, knowing one's heritage, knowing, getting dual citizenship, getting passport, getting, knowing your medical information, knowing the right to have relationships with your siblings or, your nieces and whatever. It just keeps on growing from there. Right. But at the core, it's a civil rights issue. And it is wrong. We're discriminating against adoptees and saying, it's all in their best interest. And then we deny them. And I mean, I hear horrible horror stories. Like people who thought they were adopted ended up not being adopted, but just aging out of foster care without their knowledge, basically growing up their entire adult life with an alias. And then saying, oh, well, now my birth certificate says this, but all my adult paperwork says this. And it's a disaster. I mean, so these are the things. It really, people can't leave the country. People can't go on vacation. People lose their jobs. It's a really hard problem.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to switch back to the conference. Yep. And what do you hope to get out of the conference when you're going? I know you're running around and you're the one who's putting it together, but what do you hope to get out of this year's conference? This is the 30th annual. It's a big deal.
Yep.
Number 30. What kind of things are you expecting? What do you want to see? What are you looking forward to?
Well, my perspective, my view of the conference is often very different from everybody else's because I am one of the main organizers, and I say I spend 3 days putting out forest fires. If there's a problem, my job is to put it out. So I only see all of the things that go wrong. So it's really great when people tell me afterwards, like, hey, that was great. And I'm like, oh, good, really? Because I thought it was a disaster. But so I hope to see less forest fires, less fires to put out. I'm hoping that things go really smooth. We have a great team, and there's lots of people that pitch in and lots of volunteers. I mean, we have awesome presenters and keynotes, and people really give their heart and soul to this. So my hope is always just, that everything goes as smooth as possible. Will it? Probably not. No. Will anybody else know that? No. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just
not
me.
Really.
Exactly. Right. So, my hopes usually consist of a little bit of sleep, maybe a meal or two, and some comfortable shoes. It really, that's, those are my goals. I really, but for everything else, I think it's going to, I don't doubt, let's put it that way. I don't need to hope on everything else because I don't doubt that it's going to be an absolutely amazing experience.
Awesome.
Just getting, I, I love conferences, period. I
Right.
love adoption conferences even more. The
Right.
fact that now I get to create one,
Create one. Yeah.
is just is wonderful because I love them. And I think that there is, if a person, if they've been involved in adoption in one way or another, has never gone to a group or gone to be with a large body of people who have similar experiences, you are really denying yourself something
True.
huge and vital. And it's, we all get nervous beforehand and we're scared. And I mean, I still do, and I've been doing this for years. And I try to convince myself, oh, I don't really need to go, but I need to go. But there's just something so fulfilling about being with your tribe. It's your
Yes.
people, it's your
Yeah.
family, and they will get you. And it's just, there is something so lovely about being able to talk to another human being and not have to put disclaimers or explain it or go back and educate them, but you can just talk about your
Right.
stuff and they go, yeah, no, I get you. And they
Right.
do. They
Right.
really do. And that is, there's so
It
much
is an
value in
awesome.
that.
It's an awesome
It's an
feeling.
amazing experience. Yeah. Was you a first timer last
First
year,
timer
right?
last year.
Yeah.
I've never been so overwhelmingly happy.
Yeah.
It was an experience. I was definitely tired.
Oh yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of information. You have to actually take like 2 days off afterwards in your brain.
Oh,
Just
processing
let
it
it
afterwards.
all resonate. And obviously I saw it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So I got a lot more information.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very, very happy.
Yeah. It's just,
I can't wait.
it's a wonderful experience for people. And I just say, for whether it's an adoptee, whether it's a birth parent, find your tribe, go to the meetings, go to a conference, just plunge in. You will not be disappointed
You
at
will
all.
not be disappointed.
Never, ever. Anybody. I don't think anybody ever will.